Geekscape, it's time for a brand new Geekscape podcast. I'm Jonathan London, your host, and every Geekscape, we like to talk about movies, video games, comic books, TV, all the pop culture talk that is, that fits into a roughly an hour episode. If you think these episodes are too long, feel free to give me an email. Send me an email at jonathan@geekscape.net and be like, hey, there's too much geek conversation. I listen on my lunch break, or I listen on my way to work, or I listen while I'm walking my dog, and there's just too much geek talk to fit into my walk or my work or whatever you do. I don't know what y'all do. So send me an email at jonathan@geekscape.net if you think that these episodes are too long, or if you think the conversation can go a little bit longer. I don't know anything about y'all, but I do know that we're live. We're on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitch, all that stuff. And go ahead and join the chat if you haven't already. Matt Kelly has jumped in and he said they need to be longer. I don't know about that, man. I'll tell you the truth. I didn't do an episode last week because I found myself going through the weekend 2 weekends ago, and I said, hey buddy, what do you want to talk about? This is me talking to myself in my head. Do y'all do this? Do you have your voices inside of your head? I have about 18 of them. And I said, Jonathan, what do you want to do for Geekscape this week? And I said, you know what? I don't want to do anything for Geekscape this week. I feel like there's so much that's already been talked about. That being said, whoa, what a week to take off. We got a brand new Amazing Spider-Man, #1. That was a great issue. We'll be talking about that. We're looking at Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness. That we got to think of some predictions for that one. We'll be having a special about that in about a week. And what else happened? Neal Adams died, legendary artist. Neal Adams. Moon Knight episode 5. That was crazy. So yes, it was not a good week to take off last week. And my apologies if you were checking the podcast app and being like, hey, where's my Geekscape? Nobody was doing that. Yes, you were. My apologies if you were looking for Geekscape last week. And ultimately I was like, hey, let's not do a show if you're not feeling it, Jonathan. You do weekly shows and you've been doing them for 15 years with barely a break. And last week was one of those ones when I said, hey, they don't need it. All right, we're back and we have tons of stuff to talk about. My good buddy Derek Kraneveldt from Geekscape Games and Xbox Game Passengers on the Geekscape Network is here to talk things over with me. And we've also got my ward, Garrett Briones. He is the host of what's the name? What is the name of it again? Masters of the Media. That's the name of it. I'm kidding with you, Garrett. You'll be on the show soon enough to defend yourself and probably defeat me for the title of head of Geekscape. Okay, lots to talk about, lot to get to. Let's just get to it. Here's Geekscape. All right, Geekscape, let's get to it. There's not a lot of time here. On the subject of whether or not the show should be longer, Jim Paganelli says, Jonathan, no one is complaining about your length. Okay. Oh, ouch. That's fine. If you can't take the licks, don't come on Geekscape. All right, Matt Kelly says, the good news is, if you don't do a podcast for any given week, there are 19 other shows on the podcast network that you can check out. And that is true. We have 20 shows that are active on the Geekscape network, and they range from everything from music to pro wrestling to TV shows to filmmaking. I'm really, really proud of the work that Matt has done here at the Geekscape network. And you know what? If there's something you want to see that we're not delivering and you're like, hey, I need more podcasts. Nobody's saying that. If you're like, I need more podcasts, again, send me an email, jonathan@geekscape.net. And maybe you want to host a podcast here for Geekscape. One thing that's really cool is that we have a Geekscape book club. and our good friend Christian hosts it. And yesterday they did a live one right here on this YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube, and they were talking about Jason Aaron and Chris Bachalo's Doctor Strange run. It's probably not what the movie is based on. It's a really cool run, and I suggest you going and checking out that video and watching what they had to say about it. It's a run that I really enjoyed. The artwork is insane, and it's a really fun, mind-bendy Doctor Strange story that is pretty recent. So if you're kind of getting like the Doctor Strange mood going into Multiverse of Madness, that's a really cool storyline to check out. So that is right here on the YouTube channel if you're on here. All right, let's get to it. I myself have some thoughts about Doctor Strange 2. I have not seen it, but I do have some predictions. So let's go ahead and play a game here. I'm going to invite my buddy Derek Kraneveldt, host of the Xbox Game Passengers podcast, and Garrett Briones, who is the host of the Masters of the Media podcast here on Geekscape. And I think let's start out, guys, by talking about some Doctor Strange 2 predictions. I have my Thursday tickets. Ian Kerner and I will be on the channel to talk about Doctor Strange 2. But going into Doctor Strange, or as Garrett says, your name here, if you're watching this on video, is Garrett has his name as Dr. Grange. Let's leave the jokes to me. All right, so
it's my title, sir.
It's your title. So let's talk about a little bit about. We have not seen the movie, so these are not spoilers. But let's talk a little bit about what we think we might see when we go to watch Doctor Strange 2 this week. I have my predictions. I have a pretty big prediction, actually, that I think is pretty likely.
Is it likely because you read all the spoilers that are
no, it's actually it's not. I'm actually like hiding keywords in Twitter. Yeah. So I think that's the move, is like you have to mute keywords to make sure like Doctor Strange
I've never done before. Timeline. Yeah.
I muted.
Did it for this for sure. And
yeah, I muted Wordle
within like a day. Oh my gosh, that's genius. I wish I did that. Yeah, I'm gonna be like a week. It'll be a week from when it comes out before I can see the movie as well, because Michaela's going to be away for a bit, my partner. And so I'm like, there's no way I get to it without seeing some spoilers for sure.
Okay. So we haven't seen the movie, but let's talk a little bit about what we think might happen in it. Garrett, you are, you're my ward.
Yes.
You are the one who I think will take over Geekscape upon my mysterious death, probably at your hands. I know Matt Kelly wants it, but
he's got enough on his plate,
like 50
he's got enough on his plate. Yeah. All right, let's get to it. Garrett, why don't you start us off? You're pretty in the know on comic books. What do you think is, having seen a couple of the trailers, what do you think is going to happen in Doctor Strange 2? And these can just be bullet points. Like, what do you think we're going to see? How's America Chavez going to be introduced? Or who's going to be the big bad, et cetera, et cetera? Or maybe like, who's in the Illuminati? Who's not in the Illuminati? Are the Illuminati even in the movie?
Okay. Well, having seen none of the trailers, but I know that I know what the story is about. Even though I avoid trailers like the plague, I still know a lot of the general shape. And with this one, something I think is very interesting is, even though they have teased some things and there have been the same amount of trailers and TV spots, I feel like they really haven't said what the movie is. Like, even if you read the synopsis, there's no clear, like, Doctor Strange is going to do this and then he's going to do that. Like, I think they are very much holding their cards close to their vest. And, we know that there's going to be Defender Strange, a variant of Doctor Strange. And we know that there's going to be, as he's been coined, Sinister Strange. And we know that Patrick Stewart is showing up as some version of Professor Xavier. For me, I don't necessarily know if I have any predictions. I don't want to say the one that you were talking about, London, that you talked to us a little bit earlier. But for me, I think I'm very much interested to see what the antagonistic force in this movie really is. Is it just Sinister Strange? Is it just Baron Mordo on his quest to rid everything of all sorcerers? Is there something that they are keeping close to their vest? And I know that for myself, the thing I'm most excited for in this movie, yes, I'm excited for to use a wrestling term, the cheap pops, where you cheer because you see oh my gosh, they brought back Yoan Grufford as Mr. Fantastic or something. That'd
be hilarious. Oh, look, it's Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher.
Exactly. But for myself, the thing I'm most looking forward to is how Doctor Strange, our main Doctor Strange, interacts with his variants, because I thought that was the most interesting thing about Loki, which was showrun by Michael Waldron, who wrote this movie. I think that's going to be the most exciting multiversal stuff, because it's going to challenge our Stephen Strange and his ideologies and his life and look at his decisions. So I necessarily don't have any predictions, but I'm predicting that's what I'm going to enjoy the most from this movie.
I think I agree with you on that one. Like, we know that is going to happen in the film. We've seen in one trailer, at least, we've seen some version of Doctor Strange. We've seen a zombie Strange, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that being the headstrong person that he is, that is Doctor Strange's character trait, and his way is the right way. Seeing a deviation where his way is not the right way and he is turned into a corrupted version of himself for whatever reasons, I think I agree with you. That was a really good note, that the same writer as Loki. So let's see what happens. What were you gonna say, Derek?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I wonder, like, do you guys think that, like, it just seems like there's going to be potentially so many cameos, or so many, so many different universes, obviously, with the multiverse thing going on. Do you think that, how much of that do you think, like, has a meaningful impact on the Marvel universe as a whole, and how much of it do you think will just be like, oh, there's Patrick Stewart, and like it just doesn't mean anything in the end?
How much of it's gonna stick?
How much of it's gonna stick? Like, and is this a way to introduce the X-Men, or is it just like, is it just like fun cameos? Because obviously everyone loved, seeing all of the, like, in Far From Home, which obviously these were in development at the same time. Like, yeah, everyone loved that stuff. And is it just like, do they just pack as much in as possible, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, as far as the stickiness of what happens in this movie with the multiverse, I think ultimately Marvel's done a pretty good job of letting us know that there's a handful of times, like in Black Panther, you kind of had to watch Civil War to see kind of the inciting incident of Black Panther's father being killed by Claw. Like that was the first 15-20 minutes of that film. And you kind of had to know what had happened in Civil War in order to enjoy the first 15-20 minutes of Black Panther and kind of be up to speed. And more people saw Black Panther than saw in theaters Civil War. I mean, sure, people saw it on Blu-ray and online, but Marvel, what I'm saying, does a pretty good job of packaging these films so that if you haven't seen Doctor Strange 1 or the hours and days worth of Marvel films before this, you kind of know sitting down that you're going to get a condensed, like a one story. I believe that what happens in the movie, here's my prediction, and so saying that, I think that only a few things will be sticky and turn into things for the other films. Granted, characters will be set up. America Chavez is clearly going to be set up.
Right.
Maybe members of the Illuminati. I believe the members of the Illuminati may be another multiverse, though, and we may not. It may be like, oh, they're from the Fox dimension. We're going to do our own Xavier, but give us time, because
they don't have enough movies in development. Right?
Yeah, because I mean, clearly we just lost the Fantastic Four director, and that movie may get pushed. So we see things like Ant-Man 3's release date being switched around. So Marvel's stuff is still shifting, and I wouldn't assume to think that like the plans for the X-Men are set in stone or yet. I mean, everything shifts. That being said, I think that the film will involve Mordo continuing to attack sorcerers, and by doing that, he's probably going to attack the Ancient One's training ground in Tibet, which I think we've seen in the trailer. I think we've seen sorcerers training, and we see them get attacked. That's the place that has like the nice tile roofs and things like that.
Oh,
I think in doing so, I think Wong, who is the Sorcerer Supreme, that we learned he was the Sorcerer Supreme in No Way Home, I think Wong is going to be the inciting incident. I think we're going to lose Wong pretty early on in the movie. That being said, it's a comic book movie. Does anybody really die? But I think that whatever happens with Wong, it dies, gets lost in the multiverse, whatever happens, Steven is defeated really early on in the movie. The multiverse has been ripped open, and Mordo is the result of that. Maybe Mordo's early weapon is a deviant of Doctor Strange, and now Doctor Strange has been put in shackles. He's being put up on charges on some multiversal court. Who knows what happens? I'm just making stuff up now, but the whole point of the movie is how do I bring Wong back? How do I seal up the multiverse? And how do I defeat Mordo? Wanda has to play a big part of that because Wanda is reading through the Darkhold. And Wanda also has Vision and 2 kids who she lost in the WandaVision series, who she's also probably interested in bringing back through the multiverse. So if the movie's about Doctor Strange and Wanda trying to figure out how to bring back Wanda's kids and family and maybe bring back Wong or some version of that, then I can see that happening. And then maybe by the end of the movie, all those things are happy dory. Maybe not, but maybe the movie ends on a downer and Mordo's the Sorcerer Supreme. Maybe it ends with Steven being Sorcerer Supreme again, but I don't think Wong's going to be Sorcerer Supreme past the 15-20 minute mark of this film. That's just my prediction. But I'm also the person who jokingly said that Whedon was going to kill Coulson in Avengers, and guess what? It happened. So I got a lot of flack on Twitter for that one. Richard Roy says, I think the MCU we know is a bubble universe created to imprison the Scarlet Witch. That is the truth Xavier wants Strange to know. The entire Marvel universe is about to be actually introduced. Oh, crap. The one with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. I also think Doom is in the Illuminati. Oh, my God. My eyeballs in my brain will explode. And those are Doom bots, not Ultron bots. Oh, Richard Roy, you know how to talk to me, baby. Doom could be the infamous Iron Man since there's no Tony Stark anymore. And now Jim Pagardelli's jumping in and saying, speaking of the Darkhold, the Montesi formula is in the book. And this is how we get a lead into Blade in establishing vampires in the MCU. You guys are making me proud with your references. I love that. Maybe the Darkhold in this film is how we introduce vampires into this current MCU. Maybe this current MCU is being built around as a prison to Wanda. I think that one's a little tough. I think that they intend to keep the MCU pretty clean, and again, making it so you don't have necessarily 5 years from now having to have seen Doctor Strange 2 to know what was happening in whatever phase we're dealing with then. So I like it. I like some of the suggestions here, folks. I do know this. I've got tickets for Thursday. And I've got tickets for Saturday. That's my prediction that I'm going. This is my prediction. This is my actual prediction that you can take to the bank, folks, on Doctor Strange 2. Jonathan's going to get a large Diet Coke. He's also going to sit down with this big tub of popcorn. And Heidi is going to be like,
butter. Hey, you get that butter layered, or just
there's going to be a little bit of butter on it. Yeah, a little bit of butter. And Heidi is going to be like, hey, I would like some popcorn. And I'll be like, well, then that's great. You know where the concessions are. Over there. You just go down there and get yourself some popcorn, and I'm going to eat it. I know that Ian during the screening on Thursday is going to be whispering, "Oh, that's this," and whispering that in my ear. So hopefully,
it's like me watching Sonic 2 with Michaela.
Heidi has to sit between Ian and I, so I don't catch that crap. And then we're going to sit through the credits. That'll be great. And then Saturday, I'm going to go see it at the Chinese Theater with our good friend Cooper Barnes, and I'll be the one who knows what's happening. Then I'm gonna get large popcorn again, large Diet Coke, and you know what? Let's get fancy, some Milk Duds. That is my prediction for Doctor Strange 2. Jonathan's gonna have a stomach illness by the end of the weekend. That's guaranteed, folks. Take that one to the bank. Jonathan's gonna be yakking by the end of the weekend. So that's my Doctor Strange 2 prediction. That's the one you can definitely be like, oh yeah, Kevin Feige didn't count on that, did he? All right, Geekscape, if you have any suggestions for what you think might be in Doctor Strange 2, throw it up there. And Ian and I are already kind of figuring out when we're going to do our Doctor Strange special. I think it'll be over the weekend. It may be this time next week on Monday, because we also have to talk about a little friend of ours called Moon Knight. Moon Knight wraps up this week, and we've got Moon Knight episode 5 to talk about. This is the one that aired this past week. And I'll tell you what, I watched it twice, because the first time I watched it, it kind of didn't work for me. I was thrown, I'll admit it. I was thrown a bit by the end of episode 4. You know, I wasn't a big fan of like the Indiana Jones, Tomb Raider kind of stuff that was happening in episode 4. That being said, I was definitely thrown by the ending of episode 4, where Mark and Steven show up in like a hospital, in like a mental ward, and they're running around and things are kind of weird, and it's clearly a mindscape. Episode 5 completely takes place in a mindscape, and not even a mindscape. It's an afterlife, we've seen afterlives in the Marvel Universe. We've seen them in Black Panther. Here we have another afterlife, an Egyptian afterlife. And I kind of wanted the move of like, hey, wait, how is this stopping the bad guy? And I think that was my problem with episode 5 the first time I watched it was, wait, guys, how is this stopping the bad guy? This is the 5th episode of 6. I need the plot to continue. I don't want to halt things just so that we can do a little bit of character backstory. I need that a little bit earlier. And so I really wasn't feeling episode 5. That being said, and I'll reiterate it when Ian and I do our special, I watched it again later. This is my favorite episode. This is absolutely my favorite episode. Jim Pellegrinelli is jumping in the chat and saying episode 5 felt a whole lot like an episode of Legion. That is what Heidi said, which also used mental hospitals as a setting to a great extent. And episode 5, it deals almost entirely with Mark creating the Steven persona. It was beautiful. It was really dramatic. It was really sad. And there were some really awesome shout outs to things that were set up in episode 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I got to tell you, when young Mark says later Gators, or young, his brother, in the flashback, I was like, oh my God, this is so tragic and so sad. And I see where this is going. And I think this episode is really an example of how tightly written this stuff is. Is it confusing? Yes. Does it hold your hand? No. Does that mean it's not good? Absolutely not. Like, if you got to watch Moon Knight twice, watch Moon Knight twice, because on the second viewing of episode 5, it definitely became my favorite episode. What were your thoughts on episode 5, guys?
Well,
Eric hasn't seen it, so he's
yes. So for me, I was in from the first viewing. I mentioned, I think in my last time here, this episode especially pulls a lot from at least kind of in its structure. It pulls a lot from the 2017 Jeff Lemire, Greg Smallwood, Jordie Bellaire run on the character, which is about 14 issues. That book's whole thing is it starts you, and Mark Spector is in a mental institute, and they tell you everything you ever knew about Moon Knight was all fake. You were never Moon Knight. Stephen Grant never existed. Jake Lockley never existed. Moon Knight is nothing. Mr. Knight is nothing. Like that. And he's just, every character he's ever interacted with are all fellow people in the ward, that we saw in episode 4 and 5. And it's a deconstruction of Moon Knight and the idea of Mark Spector and all of his personalities. And in that book as well, the circumstances aren't the same, but he becomes friends with Stephen Grant as a young child, who kind of is a coping mechanism for him. And I've really enjoyed this series. I will say some of the Disney Plus series for the MCU have been the structure, it doesn't always work for me. I always end up enjoying the whole picture. I just think some of the, like, for example, with Moon Knight, as much as I do love it, I don't love that, they keep hinting at a third personality, and we're 5 episodes in and we still don't, I just don't want that to be a little ham-fisted in the final episode if there's some reveal or something, but I have faith in them. But I really love this episode as a way to, because Marvel has been trying recently, especially at post phase 1 and a little post phase 2, to try and get around doing a traditional origin story. We saw a little bit of this with Shang-Chi, where we're kind of thrown into the thick of things, and then flashbacks help inform what the origin was. And I felt like this episode was a good way of not only raising the personal stakes, but also kind of saying, if you need the origin story, this is what it is. This is how he became Moon Knight. This is what it means to him. And, I have to say, I really do like how this series has really gone out of its way to make Stephen Grant as much of a person as possible, to the point where you could argue he's spent so much time with Stephen Grant. Stephen Grant is a fully fleshed out person, even though he always lives within Mark Spector. So that the moment at the end when he finds out my whole life is a lie, it hits. So that when he, dies at the end, it hits because he did live a valid life. He had a valid claim to being a living person, and he loses all that in sake of saving Mark. And I have no idea where the finale is going to go. He doesn't have Khonshu yet. We don't know.
I'm pretty sure he's going to get him back.
Well, he's going to, but the thing is, this finale is the shortest episode. It's only about 42 minutes or so.
Whoa,
that's what I was hearing. Is that it's only about 40 some odd minutes.
You have a lot of wrap up to do. You got to get him back to the land of the living because and you're right. You got to reconnect him with Khonshu. And in the chat, Big Yanks is saying, "Hey, wait, who's in the sarcophagus?" And Katie Elsesser, who always is there and reliable, says it's probably Jake. And we mentioned Jake Lockley, which is the third personality that Mark has running in his head, and we have not seen Jake Lockley in the series up to this point, or have we? There are a couple of rumors online that are like, "Hey, wait, he has a broken nose in one of the sequences in the mental hospital. Mm-hmm. What if that's Jake Lockley?" And he snaps back to Mark as well. His voice has like a New York accent, and it's a bit different. So, have we seen Jake? Have we not? Is Jake Lockley is Jake Lockley going to step in because there's no Steven anymore, and he's the person who's going to start whipping the most ass because he's a killer, like unrelenting, most violent version of Moon Knight? Who knows? That being said, is there a season 2? Are we going to see Moon Knight, join up with other maybe street level Defenders type characters as they start to reintegrate themselves into the MCU when maybe the Netflix characters start to return? There are a lot of questions I have. We will explore this stuff with Ian on a special. I'm thinking that's going to probably be Friday or Saturday of this week. But damn, we have Moon Knight ending and Doctor Strange 2 hitting all in 1 week. So those of you who were like, "Hey, I missed my Geekscape last week," you might be getting 3 by this time next week, and this is just the first one. So I hope you like the nerd talk. Katie agrees with you on that one, Garrett. She says, "Agreed. I hope the third personality is not like ham-fisted in the final episode." She's expecting it, but who knows? We'll see. I don't think it would be a bad stinger either if there's a guarantee of another season or Mark Spector showing up later on. I don't think that a Jake Lockley stinger would be a bad idea either. Say, "Hey, you've seen nothing yet," or maybe a return of the Steven persona, because obviously, like, quote unquote, when he's a aspect of your mental condition and they die, well, it just takes a little bit of cracking again and they're back. All right. Let's get this together. Okay. Matt Kelly says Bingetown TV, another podcast here on the network, mentioned that the show is submitted for a single series Emmy, so we probably won't be getting a season 2.
Yeah.
Well, you should be listening to Bingetown TV. That's a pretty cool little factoid there. That being said, does not mean Moon Knight will not be coming back to the MCU. He can obviously be jumping around all sorts of other shows, and I don't think we're gonna be done with Marvel stuff anytime soon. I think we got ourselves a lot of Marvel coming down the pike. I mean, damn, there's a Thor movie in 2 months. There's going to be a lot of Marvel folks. I think we're going to be okay on the Marvel stuff. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, I think, did y'all see, it's something that might affect, yeah, we do have a Miss Marvel show, but something that's maybe affecting the Marvels movie that's like Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Miss Marvel, the next DC Plus or Disney Plus MCU show, is they're trying to make this Fast X, this Fast and the Furious movie. And did you see like Justin Lin, who's directed already like 6 of these things or 5 of these things? He left after a week because the rumor is online Vin Diesel was difficult. And he showed up late to set and he was out of shape. Those are just rumors, Vin. Don't come
Allegedly.
I don't want to get beat up. But that being said, like, we'd heard about this trouble with The Rock working with him. And Justin Lin's been replaced by Louis Leterrier, who, like, you Marvel fans know because he did the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk. He also did a couple car movies. He did a car movie called, what's the one he did with Jason Statham? The Transporter. That's a Louis Leterrier movie. I think he's a serviceable director. If you're in a pinch, as Universal was, I think they were losing $1 million plus a day holding people while they weren't shooting anything. I think they were just shooting second unit. You got to replace this guy pretty quick. If Justin Lin just up and leaves like a week into production, like, people need to keep shooting second unit. Things need to keep happening, but you've got actors standing by too. They had to get somebody in there quick. Louis Leterrier is a really serviceable director. I think he's great. He clearly can do car chase and action sequences. Right. We've seen him do a ton of this stuff. I have faith that he's going to deliver a pretty good movie. As far as the Fast movies go, which you may argue has there been
I don't know, man.
A good movie delivered.
I remember when the series, like Fast and Furious, for whatever the second one was called out, Too Fast, Too Furious. I remember like thinking it was like too good for them at that point, and be like I watch real movies and stuff, and then like ignoring the series for years, and then like a few years ago, like binge them all, and I fucking love it so much. Like it's just so absurd and like irreverent and like so much fun to watch. Yeah, oh absolutely. And they just keep getting more and more and more preposterous. Yes, which made me I was sad to see Justin Lin leave, and Hollywood Reporter actually had a pretty in-depth article today, just this afternoon, about what happened. And apparently there was a big argument between Lin and Vin Diesel, and it was in regards to the script, and Lin essentially thought
there are scripts for this film. These films have scripts.
Yeah. So they had a major disagreement. Apparently had a big meeting, and Vin Diesel came to the set to shoot with notes on the script at that point, basically, and it led to a big argument, and ending with a slammed door. And apparently Justin Lin said that the movie wasn't worth his mental health, and so he dropped at that point. And which is sad to see, because I feel like he's carried he's not carried, but he's been a part of the franchise for so long now, and the franchise is wrapping up at this point, and so to not have him be able to kind of see it off is a little bit sad. But yeah, I think with who they picked, which apparently was their first choice for replacement, we'll get some good car chases out of it for sure.
Yeah. So Matt Kelly's got it right. He said, "Hey, that's no way to treat family." I'm guessing Justin wasn't family. Did you saw that Instagram story that Vin Diesel posted with Justin Lin in the background, and it kind of looks like a proof of life hostage video.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. Somebody looks uncomfortable in the background. But you got to make a hype video when you're on set trying to hype up the fans for the 10th installment of the core Fast and Furious movies. You know what? I'm of the opinion that these things can keep going forever. Other than, if Vin Diesel is difficult, I can see why they're ending them, but I don't know why you don't just like try and make something on a smaller scale with the Tyrese character, or with all the characters, like the MCU. Like, why is this not?
They tried that
MCU.
They tried that, and it didn't make as much as they wanted to. So
that movie was tight, though.
It was. I personally like Hobbs and Shaw, and it also. Not only is that was kind of their way to say, Rock, we love you, don't leave us, you get your own franchise. And he even took, in that movie, he took Chris Morgan, the writer of most of the Fast and Furious movies, who did not write any version of 9. He took him, and now he's become a Rock guy, and so that kind of shows further splintering of the family. I was really looking forward to Justin Lin staying on, having directed 5 of the other films. He is in many ways the heart and soul of the franchise, because John Singleton did a good job with Too Fast, Too Furious. James Wan had an unprecedented, he was dealt a very tough hand with his Fast and Furious movie, and I thought he did a great job with Furious 7, dealing with the death of Paul Walker and making this beautiful tribute to him as a man and as a person. And I was looking forward to this because I wanted to see, wrap this up nicely. Vin can go off and go make 50 more Riddick movies just for me and my friend Tristan. I love Riddick. I will talk about Riddick all day. Go make more Witch Hunters. Go do whatever you want to do.
And you forgot F. Gary Gray
of all these movies. What?
F. Gary Gray, I think, did 8 or 7.
He did. He did 8. He did Fate of the Furious, which some see as a, I like ideas in Fate of the Furious, but that is a movie that is mired in. You can tell the 2 leads of this movie do not want to be in scenes together, and so the movie suffers for it. And they
literally make Vin a bad guy for most.
Yeah, well, because they have to get him away, right. And The Rock won't be the bad guy, so you have to write around all that, and it just there's moments that work in it, but I'm interested to see, as you said, they definitely chose someone that he knows how to make a slick movie, knows how to make a stylish movie, knows how to do all these things. The only thing that is because these movies, they basically make, as this article that Derek was talking about, they write the action sequences first, and Vin allegedly signs off
that
on
for
them.
all the big movies.
He checks off whether he wants them or not. And I just, I don't know. I hope that maybe some style gets to be brought from, it's not just, hey, just shoot the camera while Vin will tell you what to do. I hope it's, he gets to bring some of his own style and flair to some of these action scenes. It's not just, look, we just need someone to, be there, because that's a very diminishing role for a director of his stature to have. I hope he gets to bring some of his style and flair to it.
But Jurassic World, all these films, like you have to do the special effects in this big sequences earlier, because they have to go right into the computer and they have to start getting visualized. So the previous stuff, and the rumor about Jurassic World was that on that one, they were kind of looking for somebody to just kind of handle the acting and the blocking, because the big sequences were already off to the printers and started to get put together. That stuff has to happen like a year. It has to start a year before actors are in charge. And that's not just anybody. That's not just getting some kid straight out of film school to handle that stuff. The subway sequence, which I thought was incredible in Spider-Man 2, we all think is incredible in Spider-Man 2, that above train subway sequence with Doc Ock, they were shooting the plates for that in Chicago, a year before the principal photography started up, 6 months before principal photography started up on the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2. So those big sequences with the effects, they have so many people working on them and so much computer crunch time happening that those things have to lead principal photography for a bit. And sometimes it does mean happening without really the director even being a part of it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put another prediction here. When I watch Fast 10, I'm going to have a big popcorn giant. No. I think that I don't think this is clearly the end. This is the end of my English speaking ability. But I think that we are going to see additional Fast movies. This may be the last Fast movie with Dominic Toretto, but I think that this is going to be. I think we will see the characters continue in some form.
I would say after watching F9. I think they have they cast young versions of all those characters, and I don't think it's a coincidence that even there's some characters that were cast for blink and you'll miss it moment, like 2 seconds. Like there's a young Mia. I would not be surprised, especially with how well received. I can't remember the actor's name that played young Dom. I would not be surprised if they do like a young Dom trilogy, like using those exact actors. That's one of the biggest things coming out of F9 with how much of those flashbacks they used in that movie. I would not be surprised if they did like a, because that way you don't have to worry about constantly referencing the character of Brian O'Connor. You don't have to worry about, where's Hobbs? Where's Shaw? You kind of, in that way also, you can finally make the people that have been saying the same joke for like the last 10 years of, I remember these movies used to be about cars. It was so funny when you said it the first 17 times. Okay. But so they can have that, and they can go, they can stop retiring. They can retire their old joke like it's a jersey and put it up and just go make some other kind of joke. Someone can make the opposite. I remember when these were superhero movies. There you go.
I'm going to disagree with you on I agree that might happen, Garrett.
That joke is not funny. Yes, I agree. That joke is not funny.
and it will not go away. No one's hanging that up.
I'm going to say that we're going to get a different continuation of the series in the Splinter franchise.
The 10th one could be like a multiverse thing, so it could just be like.
I think we're going to have John Cena carry at least another film. That's beyond Fast 10.
London,
John Cena
is
so bankable.
Do you know what his name is? His character name?
It's
Jacob Toretto with a K.
Yeah, so let's get a Jacob Toretto thing starting up. No, his name is John Cena. Just like the character's name is like Hobbs' name is the Rock. Like it's the Rock.
Hobbs?
Yeah, it's the
Roman
it's
Pierce,
the Rock.
Tej Parker.
I know you know what the name is, but
Letty.
Listen, hold on. Matt Kelly's adding another show to the network right now. You can hear the siren. I know you know what the name is, but people really just need to see John Cena.
When are they going to bring Cole Hauser back? Come on.
Oh, man.
Cole Hauser back.
Talking about TV. Talking about Cole Hauser, he was in another Vin Diesel film.
And he was in Pitch Black.
Yeah, he was. The Riddick movies, you know how they got the third Riddick film, right?
It wasn't it. I've heard the story, but now I can't remember.
Okay.
It's like
so
9 years.
Justin Lin had shot Tokyo Drift, and they thought it was great. That thing was supposed to go straight to video, and they were like, "No, this is actually a better movie than straight to video, but it needs a tag." And the tag at the end of that movie is when you have Dominic Toretto pull up for a race in the post-credit scene. He went ahead and did that for free as long as Universal gave him the rights to Riddick, and so he could keep doing Riddick movies. And he made another Riddick movie, and you didn't show up, so that's on you, fans.
He said that fourth one is gonna happen. Give me it. Give me more of the Furion race. Give me more of it. I need all of it. Bring Katie Sackhoff back. Let's do this. She was playing Doll in Pitch and Riddick. Sorry. Just bring it back. Come on, man. You got enough money. I want more Riddick. Make another Riddick game. Give me it.
I will tell you one thing that did come out of Justin Lin exiting Fast and Furious that I thought was pretty cool was that a lot of people are giving attention to Better Luck Tomorrow, his first film, that I think is really great. A lot of people were online saying, "Oh no, Justin Lin, we all love him, and obviously you know him from the Fast and Furious movies, but you got to check out Better Luck Tomorrow, which is an overlooked indie." I think that movie was a 2004 indie film, and it's great. You should definitely check that one out if you haven't seen it.
It's also
I was pretty happy.
Prequel to Tokyo Drift, technically.
Yeah, it's got a couple of the same actors.
Han Solo is in it.
There you go. All right, we got some somber news here at Geekscape. Neal Adams, who is a legendary, I think he goes on the. I think Neal Adams goes on the Mount Rushmore of comic book artists. Neal Adams passed away this past week. Neal Adams, to me, when I think of Neal Adams, I think of him as my Batman artist. He did the gray and blue Batman. He did the old Denny O'Neil written stories in the DC universe that was through the 70s. And think about like late 60s, Batman's kind of thought of as like the Adam West Batman. I think the only reason we have gritty Batman, the Batman of Dark Knight Returns of the 80s, is because Neal Adams drew Batman with a level of seriousness in reality that I think was redeeming it. I think he's the guy who took Batman out of the gold and silver age and gave him a more modern look. And Neal Adams died this past week, and it's kind of sad. I met him a few times, mainly at like New York Comic Con. He was always at the cons. Really approachable, really easy to talk to. He has a comic book store here in North Hollywood. You can still visit it, but it's sad. What are your impressions on Neal Adams, Garrett? To me, he is my Batman artist. This is Batman to me. As I said on the sit down with Michael Uslan, the Batman executive producer, like to me, Batman is gray and blue, and it's because of Neal Adams.
I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways for me was when I started to grow up and learn that comics there were more quote unquote mature comics. The immediate cover that comes to mind is from the Green Arrow Green Lantern series of Speedy, Roy Harper shooting up. And I remember thinking like that was kind of crazy to me. And Neal was there. He did the art for that run, and I remember there's so many images that have lasted from that run that are still, burned into many people's minds because, he wasn't just helping define Batman. He was helping give a new grounded take to the Green Lantern to help cement Green Arrow this is what he has been called in the comics as a social justice warrior. That is what he is. And I think, you don't get that interpretation in that. I would say even star-making run, if it's not for Neal Adams' art, really, striking this place between comic book but also realistic, where you're seeing these faces that look like people off the street, that look like real humans that are, yes, they're wearing spandex, but Hal Jordan and Oliver Queen, you could say, have never looked more human, have never been more humanized than they were in his run with both of those characters.
Yeah, I think the 80s does get a lot of credit for making comics darker and more serious. And with Batman especially, we've talked about the Dark Knight Returns and Arkham Asylum and those Batman, year one, those Batman books as being like, oh, that's the one that made Batman real. I don't think you get there without Neal Adams. I think Neal Adams pulled comics out of being kid stuff, like you said, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and saying, hey, this is growing up with us. And in the 70s, when you start having Speedy deal with drug problems and you start to see things like the war in Vietnam work their way into comics, Neal Adams treated it with a maturity, right? This is a more mature Batman. And it may seem silly saying that about a comic book character, but a lot of that had to do with his ability to draw and articulate those human emotions in a way. But also, like, the physique was way different when Neal Adams drew it than what you'd see just 10 years earlier when you'd see stuff in the Silver Age, and it wasn't as defined as the stuff that Neal Adams was doing. I think he said it best. This felt like real people wearing costumes. And Neal Adams, like, rest in peace, man. I'm going to miss seeing him at a con. We will be at San Diego Comic-Con this summer. The booth is getting together. I cannot be more stressed about what is happening at the San Diego Comic-Con, guys. Derek, Matt, and I are having ourselves a Zoom here this week to be like, hey, guys, what is the plan? Because we have not been at San Diego Comic-Con since 2019. There's a lot going on. I think, oh yeah, I'm getting married this year. There's a lot of stuff in flux. There's a lot of stressful things going on, a lot of things being planned for, and Comic-Con's one of them. So expect us to be there. We're in the same place that we are. I checked today. We have the same booth, 3919 on the floor that we've had for years. And Jonathan's got to have to go to storage this week and do some inventorizing to be like, okay, like, how many t-shirts do we order? Well, do we still have all the booth pieces? Where do the booth pieces go? It's kind of boring stuff, but Geekscape is, I want to say, like, there's a lot of work that goes into running Geekscape, and the team will be there at Comic-Con to say hi to you. So hopefully, if you're at San Diego Comic-Con, come say hi to us. 3919. It is the highlight of our year. Okay. We got a lot of cool packed stuff happening this episode. We said goodbye to Neal Adams. I'm going to go ahead and segue by saying we said hello. I don't want to talk about Avatar 2. I don't know, man. Avatar 2, I think the talk about Avatar 2 is, oh, they're actually going to do these avatars, huh?
No,
all right,
way,
cool.
Man.
They didn't even change the fonts.
Are you excited for Avatar 2? Like,
oh my God. James Cameron. You don't.
I don't know, man.
Cameron.
Like, that being said, I watched Avatar for the first time in years, like last year, and I was like, oh, this has aged a lot, and it doesn't look that great. But
it was aging while I was sitting in the theater.
I have not seen a movie in theaters more times than I saw Avatar in theaters. Like, I was like a 19-year-old kid. I love new technology, so just like the mind-blowing like 3D aspect of it, like literally it was like anyone that I would talk to, it's like, have you seen Avatar yet? And they're like, no. It's like, cool, you want to go? Like, we can go tonight. And I just like had so much fun both watching it, but like seeing people experience it that hadn't experienced it before. Obviously 3D is like come and gone since then, and so it will be, I don't know if it will have that same like feeling, but I do think that the 3D. What's that?
Avatar 2? Avatar 2, they need
every Avatar movie said has to be 3D. Yeah, it's going to be like 3D. They're going to do the high frame rate thing that Peter Jackson did for the Hobbit trilogy as well. I don't know. I think that it's such like an interesting and a like beautiful world, and I'm excited to see that expanded. And apparently they had to create new tech, as James Cameron often does, like he had to create like some new technology so they could do the whole underwater thing, because it's primarily set in or around or under the water, and it's called Avatar: The Way of Water, so that's going to be a big part of it. But I don't know, I'm stoked for it. I feel like we've been waiting forever. Does anyone care these days?
Have we been waiting forever?
Like, in a way, like they, from when they announced it, like what, years and years and years ago, I was like, shit, I loved, I just have, whether or not the movie is that good, I have so many good memories of being around.
It will be impressive. It will be impressive. So the first movie is impressive. James Cameron, as you said, Garrett, you're right. You can't just be like, you can't dismiss, and you can't bet against James Cameron.
The man dove to the bottom of the sea just for fun. Like he has made two of the greatest sequels of all time.
Absolutely.
I mean, look, I'm not the biggest Avatar guy. I mean, I enjoy it. Funny enough, I haven't seen the whole thing start to finish. I'm actually waiting because they are going to re-release it in the theater, and I think I never got to see it in the theater. So
you were young, right?
I was very young. I was about 10. It's just, my parents didn't have interest in, seeing it at the time. So it's like, I wasn't really able to go, but I don't, as much as the man helped contribute to the Aquaman as a joke thing, and I will never forgive him for that, because he signed off on being an entourage to make him more of a joke. Jim, we're gonna have a talk about that. But it's James Cameron. Like, the guy, like, he has more hits than misses. He's made 2 of the greatest sequels of all time. It's like,
could this be the
if
third?
If he wants to live the rest of his life on Pandora, let him. He could do whatever he wants. He's goated, as the kids say. He could do whatever he wants.
Pretty happy, you know, living on
Pandora. Okay, and he's good with water. I heard he's made a couple water movies. pretty good.
Give me that Abyss 4K, baby. Come on.
Okay, this is what we got to do. James, if you're listening, this is what we got to do. I know you're still working on this sequel. And Big Yanks is in the chat. He says, I want to see this movie in 4DX. And yes, I think that you had the first movie revolutionized 3D, the new technology in theaters. That was the big sell, at least for me, on this one. And it was very impressive.
I bought a 3D TV. I was like, this is going to be around forever. Boy. You know,
this time, I think we got to change things up a little more. You got to advance theater going one more time for this one. And I think you have to throw water on people.
Fill the theater with water.
Fill the theater with water.
Metal doors will shut over all the exits, and all of a sudden your feet will start to get wet, and then you'll be under the water with Jake Sully.
We need water vision, not 4DX, 4D wet. Do that. Do a system where we have to watch it with snorkels, and put sharks in the theater. Something like that.
It's like the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience thing at the theme park. Where
now we're talking.
They spray you in the face, and there's like smells, and like a bee stings in your back, and
you can take your hair tail and have sex with something, and you can do that. You know, Big Yank says the ride at Disney is pretty cool. I enjoy it. That's what you have to have in the theater if this is going to work. Or maybe have like an amiibo unlockable. You bring an amiibo, you unlock something in the movie. And I think that would get me to watch it as a giant child. Jim Paganelli says Cameron is inventing a new speaker system which will broadcast low frequency sounds that play the brown note. It just attracts whales to the theater. You're just hearing subsonics. Okay, this is what I wanted to talk about. You hear me? You're not going to run my show, Derek. You go back to your Xbox Game Passengers and you run that show. And I got to tell you, I do love that show. So Geekscape, if you're looking for some Xbox and video game talk, Xbox Game Passengers, hosted by this guy, Derek Kraneveldt, right here. He's Canadian. That means he's nice. I wanted to talk about the new Amazing Spider-Man #1. Zeb Wells writes it. John Romita Jr., who's my favorite comic book artist of all time, draws it. And it hit stands this past week. And I got to tell you, Spider-Man's been frustrating the last couple of years as they try and like put different storylines that'll kind of catch us. And they finally, it hasn't felt fresh, and I've had a lot of hope for Spider-Man, but the stories have never really felt good. Geekscape, if you're wanting to read Spider-Man, this week's Amazing Spider-Man #1, Zeb Wells writes it, John Romita Jr. artwork. I think this is an okay starting on point. If you want to jump on this thing, yeah, I think there are some lingering mysteries from the first couple pages. You do have to know a couple of the relationships. Obviously, know his relationship with Mary Jane, but you have to also know his relationship with like his ex-roommates and things like that that have carried over from the earlier runs. But that being said, I think anybody who can pick up this issue and kind of figure things out with a little, maybe you need a Wikipedia, Google or something. But for the most part, this is just an enjoyable comic that really sets up a lot of storylines that I think are going to give Peter Parker a lot of hell for the foreseeable future. And they're not focusing on like, oh, how do we get the Green Goblin back into this as his nemesis? They're going with like a Tombstone story to start things off and reestablishing Spider-Man and his relationship with Mary Jane. And there's something going on with his aunt and his roommate. So this is Peter Parker down and out, trying to control his life. And also he's kind of keeping himself on the DL too, in order to protect those around him. You know, he can't just go fully back into their lives without messing them up and making them targets for the supervillains. What do you think of this issue, Garrett?
Oh, I really dug it. I thought, like you said, it was. I like that we're starting at kind of ground level. You know, we're coming off of Beyond was it had a lot of high highs, and by that I mean, you know, it was this issue is Kraven, this issue is Morbius, this issue is, you know, Ben Reilly is doing this, here's the UFOs. Like, it's like so many. It was a very, and it was happening messy. Thrice a month, and so it was a lot. It was a lot to take in. It was a lot of characters. It was very, very big. And so I like that we are starting ground level. You know, he's going against Tombstone, the Rose. You know, we're starting not too crazy. We have hints that, you know, he mentions Norman Osborn in this group of people that he's running down to, people that he's kind of on the outs with. He specifically mentions Norman Osborn. And from some of the solicitations, I like that we're grounded. Although I have seen the solicitations that, you know, in the Dan Slott's run ended and it was corporate Spider-Man. And that was the point, is that it was the downfall of Peter Parker that he was becoming a corporate hero. We just got out of Spider-Man Beyond. Yeah. And then we just got out of Spider-Man Beyond, where Ben Reilly was a corporate Spider-Man. And it looks like we're getting some kind of corporate Spider-Man story coming up very soon. I think it starts in issue 7, where there's something related to Oscorp. He gets a new goblin almost like suit. But I'm very interested, and I like that also we're using Tombstone, we're using the Rose, and then we're seemingly building a new villain that we aren't immediately going, well, it's just going to be, you know, like you said, it's not just, okay, we're building right back up to Green Goblin. I like that we're trying something new. And I'm interested to see with this villain, because the thing that stuck out to me the most, besides their design, is their text was different. Most characters in the main Marvel universe, their dialogue is in all capitals. His dialogue was in uppercase, lowercase. I don't think, you know, that's something to note. Mostly only happens with the Ultimate Universe. I'm not saying he's from the Ultimate Universe, but it's interesting. They're trying to make him seem like he is otherworldly in a sense with that subtle bit. But I'm really hopeful for this run. I enjoy Zeb Wells. A lot of his work was my favorite on Spider-Man Beyond. So I'm very interested to see where we're going to go with this, especially once we find out whatever it is that Peter did that now everybody kind of hates him. I'm interested to see.
Yeah, that is the storyline. Everybody seems to hate Peter, but we don't know what caused it. We weren't witness to that. There's a 6-month jump forward early in the book, and you don't know what transpired in that 6 months. There's a great cliffhanger at the end of the episode regarding Mary Jane. The knowledge you go in with this is that Peter had roommates, and that the Kingpin is no longer mayor of New York because of the events in the Daredevil book, which was a pretty damn good book too. So this is a great jumping on point for Spider-Man, and you get to read it with like the best artist in comics, in my opinion. He can draw anything. John Romita Jr. has been great. And I think this is better work than he was giving DC. I feel like his DC work wasn't as, there was something about the DC work that wasn't working for me on Superman, but here on Amazing Spider-Man, it's pretty good. World's Finest. Let's talk about DC real quick. Just two word, like seconds. Can we just talk about how Mark Waid's World Finest is a really fun book if you want to read some Batman, Superman team up stuff.
Dan Moore's art is incredible.
Yeah, and Doom Patrol's in the book too. So I know that I pretty much strictly stick to some Marvel, but that DC book is really, really good. If you're jonesing for some DC, Mark Waid's World's Finest is fun, and you don't necessarily have to be like deep cut DC person to get into it. As I said earlier, Derek, who's here, who he loves so much, is the host of a video game show on Geekscape. I would say you're host of Geekscape games too. You should be. You don't disappear for 20 minutes at a time.
I mean, I did that one time, but my dog was having an emergency. So
you don't just randomly disappear from the show and then come back and ask a question that they had just been talking about for 10 minutes that you weren't privy to, I guess, because you were checking out a fitness app on your phone and yelling randomly that it could connect with your Fitbit. We're talking about you, Shane. We love you, Shane. But hey, man, listen to this Xbox Game Passer. It's really well hosted. All right, you got this news that Square Enix, who they do the Tomb Raider games, they're selling Eidos Interactive. What's the big story here?
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere, and I think there's been rumors for a while that Square Enix as a whole might be or could have been acquired by someone. There was rumors that Sony was interested, and you know, it's could just be hearsay, but you know, it seems like they're worth a lot less now because they're selling off not just Crystal Dynamics, who did the Tomb Raider reboot trilogy, which everyone loved, but they also did the Avengers game. They did the Guardians of the Galaxy game that came out last fall, which was excellent. You know, Crystal Dynamics, but also Eidos Montreal and Square Enix Montreal. They're all being sold off to a company called the Embracer Group, which is like this company that just keeps acquiring game studios, and they own Gearbox, they own THQ Nordic, and they own tons of other companies at this point. But Square Enix is selling off these three companies along with the IPs. So Tomb Raider is now owned by this, or will be owned by this company. It's a plan to purchase, basically. Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief, the Legacy of Kain franchise, all of that stuff will be owned by this new company as well. For just like $300 million, which seems like a pretty small, you know, with the huge acquisitions we've seen over the past few years with Bethesda and with, you know, now Activision and even some of the companies Sony's been purchasing. Like, these are generally like $1 billion+ deals. It's crazy to think that those developers and the games that they've made and the IPs themselves, $300 million feels like a very small amount for it. And weirdly enough, it's a, you know, like Guardians of the Galaxy sold really well. Square Enix said it underperformed still. I don't know how many copies of a game you need to sell to be a success these days. But part of like Square Enix's release, when they talked about how it will like affect them and what their plans are for like the money, it was like talking about moving forward with investments in the fields, including blockchain, AI, and the cloud. So, you know, are they pulling at Konami, and are they going to just slowly stop making video games like Konami has? Or that was like
Chico boards.
How like this, I don't know. I don't know what the culture or the morale is like within these studios, but how like disheartening must it be to feel like we're selling you for not that much money because the blockchain, you know, we got to get them NFTs and the crypto and
that's
sort of
crazy. And when you think about Atari basically taking their properties and making Vegas machines,
yeah,
or you think about like Resident Evil being a Vegas machine and stuff like that, you're just like, what are you doing? I mean, I would think that Tomb Raider alone is worth $100 million.
Yeah,
because you can exploit it.
That trilogy, like
all sorts of different things.
They got like 8, you know, critically 8s and 9s and 9.5s, like across that.
It was fantastic.
It was fantastic, and it was, and especially like to take a series which, you know, in the like PS1 area, like came out and was amazing and was a tour de force, and then just slowly kind of fall into obscurity and some terrible video games, and to resurrect it from that and do what they did, you know, and then, you know, Avengers is whatever, but Guardians of the Galaxy was,
they don't own those, but I heard the Guardians.
They don't
own
the IPs, but the studio that made them is now going to be out of Square Enix as well. So
I'm sorry for your loss, Derek.
Yeah, it's
I really am sorry for your loss. I know this is hard for you. You already lost Activision. I know.
I mean, the Activision one, I'm all for, because it means more free games on Game Pass. So,
do you think that this company that is acquiring Square Enix, or at least acquiring Eidos Interactive and acquiring all these disparate pieces, do you think that they're kind of seeing a vacuum in the Activision, you know, shakiness, and going for making this giant, massive new video game conglomerate?
And like, I mean, it seems like the business has become acquisition after acquisition after acquisition. Sure. And I think that it feels like that is going to continue for the foreseeable future. And there's only, that pool is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So yeah, I'm sure that they'll jump on, you know, they own like a lot of like Deep Silver they bought as well. They bought 3D Realms, so the creators of Duke Nukem, Deep Rock Galactic, the developer, which is a
great,
it
sounds like an arms race
game. Like it's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Well, as long as I still get my Return to Monkey Island over at LucasArts, I think I'm good.
Yeah. Gearbox, they own Metro, they own Borderlands, like all.
Borderlands is an exploitable franchise.
Yeah,
I think Deus Ex and Thief are exploitable franchises.
Yeah.
Now that Sonic the Hedgehog has taught us how to make good video game movies, I think those are exploitable franchises.
Yeah.
You knew I had to mention Sonic. All right, listen, Derek. We can talk all night, and I know you Geekscape want longer Geekscape, but while we're talking about the geek transmedia and taking certain properties and putting them into other things, Derek, his friends over in Canada started a church And this church is called
Church of the Rock.
Church of the Rock. It's an interdenominational multi-site church in Winnipeg, Canada. And what they do is they put on these theatrical productions using pop culture stuff like The Avengers and Back to the Future, Pirates of the Caribbean, but they work like pop music into them.
And turn them into Easter stories, I think. Like
they turn them into Easter resurrection stories. Geekscape, if you're watching on video, I just got to share this with you. This is I should have downloaded this. Yeah. This is the Crucifixion of Tony Stark, and they all start.
When you sent this to me too, I thought it was just a Hawkeye deleted scene or something. Like it looks like something out of the Rogers musical.
we're not that lucky. This is Tony Stark getting crucified, and Chumbawamba starts to play. I'm just gonna go ahead and play this music. You enjoy this, Geekscape.
You know, Iron Man, I may have missed the point, but I'm sure you'll get the hang of it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world.
And they're crucifying Loki's singing. They're crucifying Iron Man.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. Never gonna keep me
That's
down.
Iron Man singing.
Really, Jesus singing.
Iron Man on the cross. Yeah. This is I'm gonna need you to go over there and figure out what the hell is going on. Okay,
they're in Canada's a small place, you know. Like
they're in Winnipeg. That's 20 minutes from you.
Probably.
I need you to go over there and figure out what the hell is going on in that wasteland that they would do this
and work on a documentary podcast series. And
you need to infiltrate the Church of Rock.
The Back to the Future one was really good too. He gets like crucified on the clock. Like
I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And sure, the Pirates of the Caribbean one, he's crucified up on the mast head or something. I'm sure it's all like, oh, let's figure out how to get this pop culture icon to be like crucified on something. Sonic the Hedgehog's going to get crucified on a giant ring. I'm sure it's just going to keep going and going and going. You got to go over there, Derek. You got to apply for membership. You got to get saved, buddy. And we need a hard-hitting reporting. I mean, listen, I think we just it's okay if we cancel some of your podcasts and just like have you focus as our investigative reporter here at Geekscape, and
we'll trade it from the inside, take it down.
Right? Yeah,
we need you to do this. How much? I mean, we got Garrett here, master of the media. He's coming in hot with his brand new podcast. What have you done for us lately here, Derek? You disappeared on us for like 2 years.
That's the real question.
Yeah. I mean, Xbox Game Passenger was gone for like a year and a half. Geekscape Games, well, thankfully that was gone. But what have you done for us lately here on Geekscape? Yeah. Okay, Matt Kelly's over here adding shows every 20 minutes. We need you to become our investigative.
It'll be in one of those new shows.
Okay. You're going to have to be the hard-hitting journalism that people turn to Geekscape for. I mean, what else are we here for? All right, that's enough. I can smell dinner being cooked in the other room, and it smells great. Thank you, Heidi. I love you. We should get married. We are going to get married. All right, Geekscape. As if I haven't plugged him enough, this is my buddy Derek, and he hosts the Xbox Game Passengers. That's a podcast that you can find on your podcast app right now. And while you're on that podcast app, throw another subscribe to our good friend Garrett Briones. He's the host of Masters of the Media. And he does, I think he did a pretty damn good job here on Geekscape about telling you eloquently some of his justifications for enjoying things like Fast and the Furious, Spider-Man, etc. And you're going to get a whole lot more of it if you subscribe to his podcast, Masters of the Media.
I have to say, I'm leaving here feeling very inferior because he sounds like he knows everything about everything. So
he's my ward.
I got enough free time.
Yeah,
I got a lot of free time.
Derek, where can we follow you on the socials?
Yeah, I am at D Kraneveldt on Twitter, and that's pretty much it.
Garrett?
You can find me on Instagram at Garrett Briones, on Twitter, Garrett S. Briones. And as London said, Masters of the Media, new episode tomorrow about my first PA gig, talking about my love of Sam Raimi and doing a little quick deep dive into Doctor Strange 2016 while I talk about why it's a personal favorite of mine.
That sounds like fantastic. I'm interested in your first PA gig. I loved my first PA gig. It was on my favorite show at the time. So
Ooh.
Yeah,
y'all are really bringing the heat. I got to start making this content a little better here over on the main Geekscape flagship show, or else y'all are going to put me out of business. Geekscape we're on the road to Comic-Con in 2 months. We're going to be pretty much like headed to San Diego. I think Comic-Con preview night's on the 20th of July, so it's getting really close.
Cool.
I know we have so much work to do, but we enjoy you being a part of it. I really appreciate y'all listening to Geekscape, watching Geekscape, fitting Geekscape into your busy week. Really share it with your friends. That helps a whole lot if you go to your podcatcher. I know that we can now do this on Spotify. Leave a review. 5 stars really helps us out. And with more visibility, with more numbers, we can do things like invite other people onto Geekscape and, share some excitement with them, share them with you. I do enjoy the interview podcast as well, where I get to sit down with a creator and go in depth on some of their stuff. All right, Geekscapists, share this with your friends. Love you. And we'll see you in a few days for Ian Kerner and I talking a Moon Knight special, all about the season, and a Doctor Strange 2 special. And next week we'll have another Geekscape for you too. So that's what I get for taking a week off. Love you so much. Don't hate, create, and peace.
Bye.